I will tell you, when I teach this to my freshmen, I bring in a 3-inch binder with my notes, and I say, okay, today we only have 27 pages of notes to go through, and they all want to cry. And a page and a half later, I go, okay, well, we'll try and catch up tomorrow. The problem is I don't have you for 15 weeks, so we're going to have to catch up right now. Remember I told you that I had this fabulous schedule of what I was going to cover, and they told me it wasn't fabulous enough. So I came up, so I asked them, well, what do you think people need to talk about? And one of the topics that came up, which honestly I wouldn't have thought to share with you if it weren't, who what? No, no, the brown-haired person. Sue, oh sorry Sue. If it weren't for Sue, saying, how do speakers deal with emotion? What do we do with this, right? And then, what is your name? Susan. And then Susan just asked a really interesting question to me, and that was, when you are a speaker, is there a way of giving a message where they remember the message but forget me? And I said, for me, no. I don't think I said it quite like that, but I've got a bigger audience now, and so my love language is you laughing with me, not at me, so thank you. And the answer to that question is absolutely. Absolutely. Think of any person who's run for city council that you actually sat through their speech. Who were they? I don't know, right? Think of maybe the person who gave announcements at church 3 weeks ago. Unless it was you or your husband or wife, you probably don't remember who did it. So absolutely, there are ways of the message getting through without it being about the speaker. I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you noticed this or not, I love what I do. Okay? I think I am the 1% of the population that wakes up and goes to work happy that I'm going to work. I would appreciate more pay and a bigger office, but who wouldn't, right? I love what I do, and it shows. And I have a bit of a personality. And I let it shine because I think it brings glory to God. And, well, plus I get attaboys for it. But I am never going to ask you, nor should someone ask you, to be a performer in a public speaking situation that you are not. If you are a naturally reserved person, cool. Be naturally reserved and organized and informative and personable. Naturally reserved is a great counterpoint to someone like me. If everyone were like me, the world would not be a fabulous place. You would stop laughing very quickly. The lights would not stay on because I would forget, right? So when you speak, speak from your heart. Speak from your persona. Speak from your personality. And it'll be great. Now, when we talk about emotion, and we will, what you're going to be talking about with the bridge building and the persecuted church is an emotional topic, yes? Years ago, like even before television, even before radio, even before Ford made his first car, back around the time Jesus was born, that long ago, there were a group of people, rhetoricians. Rhetoric just means the art of persuasion, okay? Who came up with some ideas for how we persuade people, how we prove things to be true. How many of you like things to be proved true? Oh, you should all be raising your hands. Those of you who didn't raise your hand, do you vote? Tell me no. Oh, sorry. Cross the line, huh? No? Okay. Caletheus said I didn't cross the line, so I find someone, and if they say I don't cross the line, it didn't get crossed.
I cross all the time.
Mine is more like in sand, and it's a little, okay. So these rhetoricians, 2,500 years ago, they said that the way that we prove things, we prove things in 3 different ways. Through logic, logos, through credibility, ethos, and through emotion, pathos. And in your book is a handout on these 3 things. Yeah, does someone know what page?
24.
Page 24. I don't remember what I typed in there, but I've got some notes. Pathos, which is what Susan was asking about, are emotional appeals.
Pardon me. Sorry, but the notes have that reversed. So I'm not sure if what you're saying is correct or if what's written is correct. Here we have pathos as credibility and ethos as
I lied. Pathos is emotion, ethos is credibility. That's
So we have to correct.
yes, and I would love to say someone else typed that so I could pass the buck, but that's my typing. So for the perfectionist, Pam, no, what is your name? Patricia. Do you hate me?
No.
I made a mistake?
That's all right.
Did anything fall apart?
No.
Okay then. We've got some type A perfectionist people in here who are afraid of making mistakes. I just made a public mistake. Did I survive?
Yes.
Do you guys still love me? Some of you are going, did we ever love you? Yes, you did. Don't hurt my feelings. Pathos is emotion, ethos is credibility, logos is logic. How many, I've got an engineer here, so I know he operates from logos. Yes? You want the facts. Husbands, how many of you wish that your wives would just get to the point? The logos, the logic. You like to go around the bases? Are you the wife? Yes. Okay, we're going to take a vow right now that there will be no divorces or violence or grudge holding at the end of this. We have to have some openness here. So a lot of our husbands wish that our wives would get to the point. They want some logic. They don't want to know about the cell and how they need 62 pair of black shoes because not all black shoes are created equal. They want to know how much were the shoes, was there enough money in the bank account, and are all the other bills paid? Then great, have your shoes, right? I don't think men hate shoes on face. They just want to know why we need so many. Well, because we have feet. And we're girls. And that's all you need to know. There's no logic. There's no logic. Ethos is credibility, right? Some of you have credibility because you have this persona, or you are in a water treatment facility manager guy. Or because you're the head pastor, or you're a nurse, or you're a doctor, or because you walk into a room and act like you own it and so people believe you. Credibility. Pathos is your use of emotion. And some of us are afraid of pathos. Some of us are afraid that if we get emotional about talking about a topic, that our credibility gets reduced. Some of us are afraid that if our voice cracks, people will not respect us. Some of us are nervous that if we let our passions fly, people will think we're extremists. My response to that is, I don't care what they think. Emotion is how we connect with other human beings. We can't exclude logic, or Jason will go crazy. Our credibility starts from the minute starts before we ever start speaking. Our credibility starts if we're sitting in the congregation and pastor says, Vicki wants to share with us. Come on up, Vicki. And Vicki walks up to the front of the church like this. Vicki's lost all credibility. She doesn't want to be there. And if she doesn't want to be there, no one wants to listen to her. Credibility begins in the small group Bible study when you are the bully and you won't let anyone else talk. Or when you've never opened your mouth and then we need to listen to you, right? So let me tell you this. For an argument to be persuasive, you need all of these types of proof. You need ethos, logos, and pathos. Any of you have kids? She doesn't like where this is going already. Any of you have kids old enough to drive? That's a horrible time of life. So you've lent your 16-year-old son the car. And he comes back. And he hands you the keys. And he says, oh, by the way, on the corner of 6th and Main, there was a car accident at approximately 8:46 p.m. A truck was rear-ended by a 16-year-old driving a Toyota. The damage to persons was minimal. The Toyota, however, has been towed and will likely be totaled. Have a good evening. See you in the morning. Pretty concise story, very logical, reads a lot like a police report. How many of you let the boy go to bed? What's missing?
He better feel bad.
He better feel bad. That boy needs to come in. Dad, I don't know how it happened. I know you trusted me with the car. I promise I was paying attention. The music was on country. It was your station. I had it on volume 4. It wasn't even very loud. No one in the car was talking. I was paying attention. My hands were at 10 and 2, and somehow I kind of ran into another car. Now, no one's hurt. No one's hurt, Dad. And I have a part-time job at Burger King, and I will, if I have to pay you till I'm 50, I will pay you until it's... How many of you at that point are like, son, it's just a car. We've got insurance. You're grounded, but it's just a car. Because he showed some emotion.
Right.
And we need the emotion. Now, what if your son is a skunk and has never picked up his clothes and has never met curfew and has been known to stretch the truth? In fact, his nose is about this long and he's only 16. And he comes home saying, I had my hands at 10 and 2 and I'm so sorry. Do we believe him? No, even if you're a good parent. Even if you're a loving parent. Even if you're kind of amused by your son's antics, don't tell him you're amused. They only get worse. My son is 19. I speak with authority. His credibility is shot, right? Because the last 15 times he came home with an apology, nothing changed. Does that make sense? You, as a speaker, have some responsibility to use some logic. But you have to balance it with your own credibility, who you are, and with some emotion. Tell me what some of the emotions are.
Tears.
Tears would be an expression of an emotion. Sadness.
Anger.
Anger, that's one of my best ones. I'm really good at that.
Laughter.
Humor. Laughter would be an expression of humor.
Clapping your hands or emotional gestures.
So enthusiasm.
Joy.
Joy. Christians like that one.
Frustration.
Frustration. I like that. I don't like it. I just live there a lot. Contempt, disgust, fear, right? There are about, I think, 9 pretty recognizable emotions across cultures. It is okay if you are talking about something sad to allow yourself to feel that sadness while you're speaking. Because it would be very odd for the audience if you were like, yeah, there's some persecuted Christians over there, and it's bad. My credibility is shot, right? Because if I don't care and I'm the expert, are you going to care? Go ahead.
My problem with public speaking, personally, I'm not afraid. It's not a credibility thing. It's just that the emotions come far too easily. And twice in the last year and a half, speaking to my home church, tears began to flow when I make a little 5-minute presentation about the Lord. I can't stop the tears. And prepared for this, I made a 2-page thing about why we care about the diversity of the church. Reading it to her, I couldn't get through without crying. That's too far the other direction. That's why I hate public speaking.
Darvis, can I ask you a question? What was your audience's response when you start crying?
I was very moved.
I was there, I cried.
Wait. Are you Stacy?
Yeah.
She goes to our church.
Okay. So Stacy, who was an audience member in your public speaking presentation where you completely lost it and cried, how horrible, her response was to mimic your emotion because she knew it was real. And you touched her heart in a way that she couldn't help but feel. And how is that bad, Darvis?
I don't know.
I think he's concerned that it's going to steal away from the credibility. If he can't get through a presentation without tearing up and choking up and not being able to make the sentence flow, he's concerned that the audience is going to get tired of that.
Especially if it's twice a year, same church.
Yeah, and
Darvis, were your emotions manufactured?
No.
Did you go sniff an onion before you started speaking? You know, because onions make you cry.
It wasn't long. I mean, it wasn't like through the whole thing. It was just a point in time, and then he composed. And the thing about Darvis, which most of us know, is he goes into it, where most of us just hear it in the stories. And so I get that. So it's totally understandable when you see it firsthand.
So Darvis, I don't know you like the rest of you know Darvis. But I would... What?
We've met him today.
Oh, okay. So we all know Darvis. I would say I appreciate your concern that, and I think it's your concern, that the messenger overwhelms the message. Okay? And I think if it's fake, it does. How many of you have ever heard a poor speaker at church give a testimony? Come on, they're not here to... I'm not asking you to name names, but you've got this kind of shy person who doesn't really talk and who's a little on the insecure side, but something good has happened to them and pastor says, come share. And they are responsive, and they do. And they and they ah, and they don't look at you, and they shuffle their feet, and you can't help but tear up. Was it logos?
No.
Was it ethos? A little bit. What was it? They touched your heart. Darvis, don't be afraid of letting that heart show. Now, if you're crying over a Laker game, I'm going to tell you get over it. Okay. I say Lakers because I think they're in LA, and maybe Clippers. I think we have Lakers and Clippers.
Touching on that, our church is a very small church.
Okay.
We all know each other pretty well.
Okay.
We have a man in the church that opens every service with a song.
Okay. Do you want him to?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Very good though. Thank you. He cries a lot when he reads the song.
Okay.
But we all know him. And we all know that he's crying because he loves the songs
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
So it has a positive effect.
And don't you think that someone who maybe doesn't get the Psalms, Right? It's like, oh, it's kind of poetry, and I don't know, hills and sheep and stuff, right? Who sees a grown man, an adult man, so moved by Scripture that it, and we're talking men, human, right? I mean, right? That when the Word of God, the truth of Scripture moves you. If there is a cynical person in the audience who wants to mock them, let them. Can't stop them. But why in the world would you stop this man or that man from sharing from the heart? Because that will change people's lives. Emily Barrett Fuentes told me about Open Doors for 4 years. Then she moved to a flat state and went to graduate school. 6 years later, I hear a 17-year-old boy who is passionate about persecuted Christians. And 2 months later, I'm talking to you. I knew about Open Doors. Someone had told me. But it wasn't until this kid let me into his heart that I said I have to be involved. And when you connect with your audience on an emotional level, many of them, I can't say all of them, many of them will say, I have to be involved. And you'll get prayer warriors on their knees and things will change. And you'll get people with decent bank accounts writing checks and things will change. And you'll get people talking to people because you don't know who knows who. And lives will change. And they will not change if you only operate off of logos. Logic is persuasive. You need it. You really don't want your accountant crying when he's explaining your taxes. Do you understand what I'm saying? I read a book. I read lots of books. I read a book that appealed to me because the title was Thank You for Arguing. You should all read it. The author is a very sarcastic person. Read the title. And he says, in his explanation of ethos, pathos, and logos, he says, I dare you to speak logically for 24 hours and see if you don't get punched in the face. Logic matters, but it doesn't move. Emotions matter.
Yeah, I think too sometimes when you're doing public speaking that the brokenness and the transparency is what really captures people, whether it's of interest to them what you're talking about or not. That when they see that brokenness and that transparency, it just
Sure, sure. My favorite movie is from the 1970s, so I'm sure I watched it in reruns or on cable or something. I'm sure I did. I'm sure I heard about it in a history book. I tell people when I teach interpersonal, because we talk about love and stuff like that. I tell my students that my favorite love story, and some of you who are not 25 will know this movie. My favorite love story movie is Brian's Song. Do you guys know the movie Brian's Song? Brian's Song is a true story. You can get it on Netflix, I think, or at Target for like $5. Brian's Song is a love story. It is a true story about the first black and white, I guess NFL. It's football. Is that NFL? Sure, we'll call it the Bears. Are they football? Yeah. Okay, so I'm a big sports fan. It's the true story of a black and white football players who were the first NFL football players to integrate. They roomed together, they ate together, they played together, and they grew to love each other. One of them blows out his knee, the other one goes to his basement and builds a weight machine and mocks him and bullies him, even though he's a better athlete than him. So him getting better ruins the other guy's chances of playing. He mocks him and bullies him and loves him till his knee is better. The other one gets ill, and the better athlete is a very quiet and shy man. The lesser athlete is me, only a man. and athletic. So he's a troublemaker. He's a troublemaker, and he gets sick. And D. Williams, what's the first name? Billy D. Williams. Billy D. Williams, shy, can't give a speech to save his life. He goes up to give a thank you speech, and he's like, thanks, right? His friend gets sick. He loves his friend so much. He goes to accept the Player of the Year award, and he gives this moving speech. It wasn't written down. He looked at his audience, terrified of public speaking, but loving his friend, and says, I love. So I'm going to cry. I do every time. I love this movie. I love Brian Piccolo. And when you hit your knees tonight, I ask you to ask God to love him too. That movie is over 30 years old. I watch it at least once a year. I watch it when I need to cry and can't cry because I can't even talk about it without crying. How many of you are offended by my show of emotion just then? Go ahead. How many of you want to go see Brian's song? Right? Logic moves. Logic tells us we need logic. That's like algebra and water treatment and engineering and computers and why when you click the button your TV goes on.
But your printer won't.
What?
But your printer won't.
But your
And with that polytheal statement you just did, it makes the person want to go out and rent it. You know, I'll go home and sit in the room and do this, because that's the same thing about introducing a persecuted church. So that's why he should not be embarrassed. So
I just wrote the movie down.
Right? My telling of the synopsis of the movie was not even organized. But the fact that I'm telling you how much I love it, and because you've decided that I have some credibility, you kind of like me. I know you do. You can't see his face. Every time I say that, he rolls his eyes at me. But when you connect with people's hearts, you move them. All right. There's a guy, a little bit since Jesus, in the 1700s, his name was George Campbell. And he was a minister, an educator, and a theologian. And he talks about testimony. How many of you have a testimony? Oh, all of you should raise your hands. You make me so sad. We all have a testimony. George Campbell, what's that, 200 years ago, 250 years ago? Is it more? 17, 18, 19, about 300 years ago. 300 years ago, this guy, George Campbell, says that the only way that we know anything is from someone else's testimony.
Whoa, wait, who's that?
The only way that we know anything is through someone else's testimony. You know your genealogy because someone told you. You know about the Constitution, not because you were there, but because someone told you. You found out about Jesus, not because you were there, I hope, but because someone told you. And testimonies are also a kind of proof. I actually did some research. So I went to Bible Gateway. Oh, and your testimony, I actually have real notes for this part. Your testimony is your ethos. Your testimony is your credibility. And your testimony speaks louder than anything else you're going to say. Your credibility, right? And that's why, Darvis, your congregation is moved when you cry instead of repulsed. Because they know who you are, and they know that if it's going to move this guy, it must be really bad. Yeah? Bible Gateway. Have you guys ever used Bible Gateway? You should. It's a great resource, especially when you're not a Bible scholar. So I typed in keywords Bible Gateway for the word testimony, and there were 67 responses. So at least 67 times in the Bible, the word, at least in the NIV, the word testimony is used. And so I went a little further, and I found a story. I put a marker in here. Where did it go? In Luke 5, and you probably know the story. I'm not going to read much because I have to put my glasses on if I'm going to read, and I don't like my glasses. So Luke 5 is the story of the leper. Remember the story of the leper? Jesus does what? Touches him and says, "Don't tell anyone what I've done." Don't tell anyone what I've done. That's Luke 5, 13 through 15. So this is Jesus, verse 13. Then he put his hand and touched him, saying, "I am willing, be cleansed." Immediately the leprosy left him. And he charged him to tell no one. "But go and show yourself to the priest and make an offering for your cleansing as a testimony to them, just as Moses commanded." Do what you're supposed to do. That's your testimony. Live your life. But then, I love this, verse 15. "However, the report went around concerning him all the more, and great multitudes came together to hear and to be healed by him of their infirmities." Your testimony matters. How you live your life, how you report on the good things of God, how you share your story and the stories of others is going to move people. It doesn't say that the leper disobeyed Jesus and went and chatted about it. It doesn't say that. People noticed. Do you know that I am a very nosy person? I know you didn't know that, but it doesn't shock anyone. I am a nosy person. I go to dinner and I listen to the people behind me's conversation. I sit at the mall and I make up stories about people who are walking by. I got a pedicure the other day. My toes are blue. You can applaud them later. Aren't they cute? They are cute. And there is a mother and daughter across from me getting our toes dried. I inserted myself in their conversation. I am a nosy person. We can call it natural curiosity, but I'm nosy. When people see that something has changed, they will talk about it. Good and bad. Good and bad. When you talk about how you serve open doors and your credibility is strong, people will want to get involved. And the story of open doors and the persecuted church will go to multitudes. Your credibility is low, it hurts the cause of the persecuted church. It just works that way. Was that too much condemnation? It wasn't meant to be condemning. Convicting is okay. I didn't want it to be condemning. So, any questions, any more questions about the use of ethos, logos, or pathos? Get fear out of it. We are so afraid of being embarrassed. We are so afraid of people judging us. We are so afraid of losing control. But what is the worst thing that could happen?
You can die and go to heaven.
Cool. Cool, right? You die and you go to heaven. Someone who already has a little bug in their bonnet likes you less than they already didn't like you. Oh, well. What?
You're not being put in prison.
You're not being put in prison. Yet.
We're saying you do such a poor job, then it brings dishonor to the name of Jesus. That would be the worst thing.
How can it? If what you are saying and doing is true. I know it brings dishonor to Jesus in my humble, not theological perspective. And that is not living up to the potential that God gave us.
Amen.
My favorite quote is, oh gosh, I can't remember who said it. Saint Irenaeus, I'll look it up. But my favorite quote is, "The glory of God is man fully alive." John Eldridge quotes that. But the quote continues, "The glory of God is man fully alive." Live. Be fearless. Say what you need to say. Say it how you need to say it. And people will be moved. And lives will be changed. And it will reflect the glory of God. And how can that be bad? Okay, moving on. All right, oh, I turned the page too fast. Okay, I need a couple of people. We've talked a little bit about Ethos, Pathos, Logos. We've talked a little bit about organization. We've talked about writing outlines. And all of that is good because you do all that privately. And then they ask you to speak. So I'm going to ask a couple people to volunteer because I don't know who I might damage forever if I volunteered you. I'm going to ask a couple people to volunteer to come up here and tell us a story.
Any story?
Yeah. Okay, come on up, Vicki. Oh, and when people get up to talk, at least when I'm in charge, we give them applause on their way up, and then we give them applause when they're done. So. Straighten up those shoulders. So, here is the deal though. Vicki gets to talk until she says, you know what? Well, if you say it like that,
okay.
But you know, how we just throw it in there when we don't know what else to say. Or any other verbal garbage, pause, that Brianna doesn't like. At which point, or the audience, if you catch her, we're all in this. This is where we get to judge less than we judge. So she gets to talk till she throws in some verbal graffiti. And then we send her back. And then we ask for another volunteer. And do you have your timer? Okay. Yeah. We want to see how long. We're going to get 2 or 3 of you up here after I've done this. I just said, every time I do this, I start saying more than I have. So whoever does this the longest wins. I have no prizes, but you win. Tell us a story.
2 weeks ago, I was faced with the question, how do I serve the persecuted church? And like you, the first response is, I really don't know why. Why did God call me to this? Last week, I attended a meeting. I was shocked because that meeting was designed to answer that question. The meeting that I attended was a women's meeting, but the speaker at the meeting talked about trafficking in America. Now, what I came to realize is that there's an intersection between the persecuted church and trafficking in America. Now, most of what we talk about is the persecuted church happening in other countries. But I have discovered there's a persecuted church here. In my own community, there's a large population of Somalian refugees. There are many of those who have converted to be Christians, but they must meet in underground churches. In my own community, there's also a large population of Hindus and of Sikhs and even Roman Catholics. And those two are forced to meet in underground churches because they can't go to their parents and say, I'm a Christian. They can't open a Bible or have a Bible in their own home. As a result of that, if they were, they can't come into our churches. So the way our church reaches out, which is come to our Bible study, come to our youth meetings, we're not meeting these needs. Because they can't walk into our church in a burqa. What would it happen to the congregation? what would happen to them at home. What's happening now then in this community, and where this intersects with the trafficking, is that if a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, or a 14-year-old goes to their father and says, I'm a Christian, or what does God bless America mean? The father throws them out of the home. They become homeless. 50% of the homeless children today end up being sex slaves or labor slaves. And just to let you know, folks, this is in our own homes. Of the 800,000 victims of trafficking in the world, 300,000 of them come from America. It is flat scary. So what happens when we go to churches and talk about it? Churches bury their heads in the sand. I don't want to be a part of that. Unfortunately, a third of the churches are actually participants in it. So this is part of what we need to do when we talk about persecution. So the answer to the question, why do I serve the persecuted church? It's because in my own community, there's an underground church. So what am I called to do? I'm called to learn from the church around the world so that I know how to reach out to these underground churches of the Muslims. So that I know how to reach to these Hindu background believers that are in Walmart, that are running the hotels, where they're asking the questions. And it can't be the way we traditionally try to reach out to people in our churches. We just can't do it. Because we can't say, we're having a women's meeting, please come. Because they can't do that and still go home safely. So we've got to raise awareness. And I heard somebody say earlier, knowledge is accountability. We cannot go home and bury your heads in the sand that human trafficking doesn't take place. Please, I implore you, if you work with youth groups, if you have grandchildren, if you think you'll ever have grandchildren, make them aware. If they see somebody who's all of a sudden their clothing has changed, they're wearing better clothes, or they're more sullen than they used to be, they're likely a victim. They may still be in school, but they're likely a victim of this. So we've got to work with the persecuted church around the world, but we've also got to work with it in our own communities, and we've got to address this terrible tragedy we have in our country with the human trafficking. It starts here. Pornography is the cause. Pornography is the addiction. It's not something cute that we talk about, boys going through puberty, and no, isn't this funny? It's the cause. It's just like cocaine. In fact, the chemical response the body has to pornography is the same as cocaine. So I know I've absolutely destroyed because I did my introduction, my body, and my conclusion, but I've run out of what to say.
Vicki was the worst possible person. She went to do this because she did everything so well, so we couldn't pick on her, which is the whole fun of this. The logos of this assignment. Now, Vicki, at the end, gets really angry at herself, right? She's like, I know I messed up, I know I messed up. Is Patricia listening to me at all? Okay.
Because I'm adding things after I've concluded.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I'm supposed to keep talking because you told me to keep talking until I said
okay. So it's our fault. I now know how Eve felt in the garden. It's all her fault. But you notice, up until, and I didn't tell her, if you finish your story, you can stop talking, so I'll accept responsibility. But you notice up until that part, I'm sitting over there grinning because she has this introduction, and she had the body, and her conclusion. In fact, I was thinking to myself, she's not going to conclude, so I have something to comment on. No, then she goes and concludes. And then she added stuff about porn. It didn't belong there.
It didn't, but I was supposed to keep talking.
Did anyone care?
I kind of noticed that, though.
You noticed
it?
it?
I was like, but I understood the fit.
Yeah.
But she made some time, it wasn't, yeah.
But it wasn't part of the speech.
Right.
And that was my problem. I'm like, I don't really put it in the wrong spot here.
Well done, Vicki.
we were making trips across the border and back every day. The first time I went through the border, I was totally terrified. Although everyone has said, you won't be arrested, that's no big deal, I was still very scared. When I put my suitcase on the X-ray machine and I went through, I was too scared to look over and see if anybody's watching the screens. I went through, got my suitcase, went to the other side, everything was good. It was like, oh, I made it, thank God. Second time I went through, I was almost as scared. The third time, I thought, you know, I think just about anybody can do this. The fourth time, the last time through, I had been made leader of my group. And this was my last time I was going home the next day. I had several experienced people on my team who had been leaders in the past, and they said, we're not coming back to China anymore. You need to learn what it's like to lead a group. And I really didn't want to do that because the leader has to account for all the money. You have to count it, sign for it. You have hotel vouchers, the plane tickets for the whole group, and there were 4 of us. But I realized that this was something I wanted to do the rest of my life, and I had some good teachers with me. So I thought, okay, we'll do this. You guys provide me, help me do this. And so this is my last trip through. I began getting really curious. What are those X-ray guys looking at? So I came up, and I was quite a ways from the X-ray machine. I looked over, and they're all talking among themselves. And I thought, oh man, that's not even really a miracle. And I thought, yes it is, yes it is. The fact that they're not looking at the X-ray machine, and the Bibles get through to our brothers and sisters, that's miraculous, and that works. I can live with that. So I put the suitcase on there, went through, picked up, went through, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm just about the closest thing to James Bond that God has. Drag it out, you know, and we had to take a taxi to the airport, which was an hour away, and so there was one from the UK, and then 3 Americans, 2 men, 2 women, and so we got to the airport, and I was just thinking, you know, I love this, but I don't get the adrenaline rush that I thought I would get, because I used to be an adrenaline junkie before I came to Jesus 12 years ago, and I really thought, you know, what does an adrenaline junkie do for Jesus? Well, I figured out this is what they do. Well, now it wasn't scary anymore. So I thought, well, it's still a good ministry. I'm still doing good. So we come up to the ticket counter. Everybody on the team wheels up their heavy suitcases full of Bibles. And we're inside China now, it's no big deal. But we had heard that 6 months earlier, 3 Australians had been arrested with Bibles. They've been interrogated for 3 days and nights. They brought in an interpreter, spoke English as well as we do. And they were not released until they had identified every person in the digital cameras, every phone number on their cell phones, and they were going to go through a bad time. And so getting caught inside China with a bunch of Bibles is kind of a bad deal. I gave the ticket agent the tickets for the 4 of us, and I was gazing off in his face, just thinking, I'm just really cool. And the lady was speaking very angrily at me, the ticket agent, very angry. And all of a sudden, a lot of things came to focus at once. She's pointing behind her, and there's a Chinese man back there in an official uniform, and he has my suitcase up on a table, and he's waving me to come back. And it dawned on me instantly, it became in focus, that there was another X-ray machine between the ticket agent and this man. He had run, they had seen my suitcase brought up here, and they found the Bibles. And I was about as scared as I've ever been in my life. All I could think was, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. I thought we were in just about the most serious trouble I've ever been in. So I went back there, and it goes, open! And the team saw me, and they were praying for me. I didn't realize they'd seen me. So I unzipped it, and there were Bibles in a clear plastic, like a viscline bag, very strong, waterproof, very clearly study Bibles. And this guy looks down, and he pushes the plastic down, and he looks back up and steps. And I'm looking at his face now because my future depends on what's in his face. I know whether he's going to get the handcuffs out or all go to jail. As I looked at him, I could see he was confused. And I watched him, and I could see he forgot what he was going to say. He forgot what he was doing, forgot why we were there. And Chinese people don't want to lose face. And he finally, after about 30 seconds, he went like this. He wanted me to pick up the bag of Bibles, which I did. There's nothing there but air. He looked underneath, and he stepped back, and I set them down, He does like this, a different direction, as if he hadn't seen anything the first time, maybe a different direction will make something materialize. And he looked up there, there was nothing there. I'm thinking, I don't know what's happening here, but Lord, 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 take care of us. And I'm watching his face, and he got more angry and more confused and more embarrassed, second by second. He just sat there doing, and walked away. We're not going to jail. And so I zipped it up, put it on the conveyor belt, came back, and my hands were doing this. And the team said, what happened? So I told them the story of a miracle. He just kept us all from being deported with a big red stamp on our passports. And before we left that day, we had sung my favorite song. The beginning of each day is that you get the assignment, and you all go around pray, and you sing whatever you want to sing. We sang What a Friend We Have in Jesus. We sang Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus. Just as we're about done, I mean, wait, so we haven't sung my favorite song yet. I'm the leader, so we're going to sing How Great Thou Art. So we sang How Great Thou Art, yeah? And we got on the plane, we flew our destination, and I'm thinking, it just doesn't get any better than this. I finally saw Brother Andrew miracle. You know, it was right off the pages of God's Mother. As we sat there, I told my team, we're all sitting in a row, I said, don't worry about anybody getting off here because, don't worry about changing the flight because we're going to deliver here in this town. The locals have to make the transition. We don't have to. And so we're waiting, and the loudspeaker began playing music. And as I sat there, I thought, oh, it's funny. I must have How Great Thou Art on mind because it sounds like you're playing How Great Thou Art. That was Communist Chinese Airline. As I sat there longer, I thought, that sounds like the rest of How Great Thou Art. This Communist Chinese Airline was playing How Great Thou Art, my favorite song. And I realized that in years to come, I would make excuses. I would say, oh, that was a coincidence at the border. The guy thought he saw a gun for some reason, thought he saw a bomb. It was all just a coincidence. That wasn't really a miracle. But that in conjunction with a Communist Chinese airline playing my favorite song, it was an absolute miracle of God that I would enjoy the rest of my life.
Did any of you hear him say, you know? You did. I did. They were so, you didn't say very well, but they were so moved by what you were saying that no one wanted to call you out on it.
Did you get the adrenaline rush?
Oh, yeah, you know. There were several things I thought of afterwards. Oh, I should have thrown it in. But actually, as soon as I walked away, I heard God's voice going, is that enough adrenaline?
It's a good thing I don't have a prize because they both would get it. What are we talking about? Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about verbal delivery
and nonverbal delivery. And this is where I get to pick on poor Brianna. So Brianna, you want to come on up? She doesn't really want to, but she agreed to. Remember, when they come up, you clap. So. I lied. We're going to talk about nonverbal delivery first, since I brought her up here. How many of you, when you get up to speak, you're not exactly sure what you should do with your body? Do any of you even think about it? Okay, you should think about it. And we're going to tell you what to do and what not to do with your body. 97% of a person's communication happens non-verbally. So people listen, oh yeah, people, 93. Oh, it's 93 or 97, one of those two. So people either hear 3% of the message through what you're actually saying and the rest through what you're not actually saying, or 7%. Now what happens if the physical delivery is annoying or distracting? That wasn't rhetorical. What happens?
You don't listen.
You don't listen, right? Some of you, evidently we've got some really good speakers in here, so I don't even know why you brought me, Carrie. Just for me, I get. Oh, for Patricia, okay. So there are some things that people do non-verbally that distract from the message, and we'd like you to stop doing them. Okay? Now, when you stand to speak, it is okay to use hand gestures. How many of you have seen me use hand gestures? How many think I use too many hand gestures? I do, really. From the perspective of the audience, I do. Thank you for not pointing that out. You guys are nice people. But when you get up to speak, there are some things that you should and you should not do. So the first, I'll talk about what you should do. You should stand straight and tall. So if you notice, Brianna is standing, her arms are down to her side. We call that home base. Her feet are flat, equal distance apart, and she's just kind of relaxed, just standing still. This is where or how you should be standing anytime you're not using a purposeful hand gesture, right? The other thing that you need to remember to do is make eye contact. People want to connect with you, and if you're not looking at them, they can't connect with you. So I was telling Patricia earlier that if you're a little bit nervous and you're a little bit afraid of making eye contact, get a friend to sit in one part of the audience and another friend to sit in the other part of the audience and look at them. Everyone around them will think, wow, they're looking at me, isn't this nice? And they will smile at you, and because they're smiling at you, you will look at them, and then the people around them will say, oh, she's looking at me, isn't that nice? And it'll reinforce this positive feeling, this positive commitment with your audience, right? So make eye contact with everyone. And if you don't know anyone, get some confederates, get some people on your side and say, just smile at me. I'm nervous, smile at me. When I get up there, smile at me, and look for those people. Let's see. Eye contact, natural.
She said,
I'm saying like nobody's business. You don't get to go yet. I don't know what I did wrong. I'm running behind. So I either have to hurry or start tomorrow with something I wasn't planning on starting tomorrow with. You should make powerful or purposeful hand gestures. So did any of you see Karate Kid? The original, not the remake. Yeah. Wax on, wax off. I have a tendency to wax on and wax off when I lecture. I don't know why. It is a dumb movement. It doesn't add to what I'm saying at all, but it gets rid of some tension. One of the reasons why we move when we speak is to get rid of some of that extra tension that we have, right? How many of you feel a little stressed when you speak? Okay, so a body movement can help you get rid of some of that tension, right? But frantic body movements just distract from your message, right? So Brianna's going to show you some things that we don't want to see, ever. So, ever. So the first thing that she's going to show you what not to do is with your hands, and I like to call this the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Right? I know you weren't there, but Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? They keep their hands up here. It's a very weird, limp kind of... What are you doing, right? And even though all of you are laughing, guaranteed, I can't say all of you, but guaranteed 95% of you have done the T-Rex. Stop it.
Stop.
The next one that we don't want to see, I like to call the boxer. And this is... All of them. Yeah. This is often done by men. I don't know who taught you to slam a fist into an open palm as a way of communicating. But you see men do this and this a lot. No one is going to attack you. You do not have to be prepared for violence. Relax your arms to your sides. Stop threatening your audience. Okay? Do you have pockets? Yeah. Another weak or ineffective gesture is putting your hands in your pockets. My grandpa was one of the best speakers that I ever heard in my life. That man could tell a story like no one else's. My grandpa only had one hand. The other one was gone. When he would get up to speak, he would stick his one remaining hand in his pocket and jingle his change. Great storyteller. Huge distraction from the story. So if you are a pocket putter into, stop it. For ladies, it might be easier because I don't think we tend to keep our hands in pockets like gentlemen do. But also, we can wear clothes that don't have pockets. I don't know other than gym shorts if they sell men's clothing that doesn't have pockets. But remember, it's a distraction to the audience. It takes away from your message. So if you find yourself sticking your hands in your pockets, just take them out. It's the same place. Leave your hands to your sides, home base. Use a gesture, bring it back. This one is one that many women are guilty of doing, and it's the baby on the hip stance. We like to jut our hips out and talk. And we also like to put our hands on our hips. I've been accused of being a chicken. Do you see the resemblance? Go ahead, show them. Again, I think we stand this way. In fact, I'm sure we stand this way because we take up more space, we feel more powerful, we feel comfortable. This is how we talk to our husbands and our children. Now you know what it looks like. Stop it. So put your hands to your sides. Use a gesture. Bring it back to home base. Another one that is very distracting, I call it the shishi dance, because I lived in Hawaii for 4 years. Shishi is what they call potty or pee-pee. And that, go ahead. It's when you cross and uncross your leg during the course of your speech. When I see people do this, I think 6-year-old girl has to go potty. None of you are 6. Hopefully you've all used the restroom before you get up to speak. Do you really want people to go, oh, persecuted church, oh, I really have to go potty now, right? Be careful of what message you're sending. Everyone will get up and go to the restroom, and they never come back, so don't do that. Twirling the hair. Again, usually women, somehow we find great comfort. In fact, if you look at any junior high classroom, you'll see girls taking notes and playing with their hair. It is a comforting thing, which is fine if you're sitting in a junior high classroom taking notes, but you are grown people with a message to give. And so you want to do all that you can to reduce those distractions. Yes? Was there anything else that I wanted to make sure we covered? Oh, the Adam protective pose. You know why it's called the Adam protective pose? I do. And now you do. Some of you are a little embarrassed by it. And then the last one, and that tends to be one that men use a lot. And I wonder why, Adam protective. I think we're afraid. And then the last one, and this one also is oftentimes a pose that men take, and I call it the hostage taker. And you look like a cop has just thrown you up against the wall and handcuffed you, and instead of looking powerful and in control, you look guilty of something, and I just want to be on the jury and convict you, right? And the cheerleader clap. Oh, yeah. This is how too many women, I don't know how many men begin, but too many women begin their speech this way.
Okay, everyone.
Okay. Right? So if you ever had aspirations of being a cheerleader and they've continued to this day, and you find yourself, just bring your hands down. Don't do it. Just say no. Don't do it. Okay? That's it. Thank you. Well done, Brianna. The second part of delivery is possibly the part that you focused on in the past, and that's the verbal delivery, right? And there are a lot of things that people do right when they're giving a speech, and there are a lot of things that people do wrong when they're giving a speech as far as the verbal delivery goes. And there are a few pointers that I can give you for keeping your speaking interesting. If you've noticed today, I've been talking for about 3 hours, just under 3 hours, and if you notice, I try and put some vocal variety in my voice, right? One of the worst things that you can do as a speaker is be monotone. I can't even give you monotone for an example. I don't know how to do it. So, but you know people who do. And if it's you, stop it. And if you're saying, Karen, I don't know how to stop it, here's a way to add some variety to your presentation. When you write your speech, highlight the words that need some emphasis. Give yourself some stage directions. I coach every commencement speaker, every student speaker that does commencement, graduation at Vanguard, has to come and get coached by me first. Because a few years ago we had a really horrible student speaker and I couldn't do it. And I said, hey, let me help them. And now I do. But I have them, you can do anything. You can write in your script, you can highlight it in different colors, you can put it in a different font. I was telling Patricia, who is nervous about speaking without a full script. Okay, use a script, but color coordinate, so if you lose your place, so she's got the script that is her security blanket, but she wants to look at the audience, but she's afraid that when she looks back down, she won't be able to find her place. Well, if she color coordinates it and she's looking for blue instead of the, it'll be much easier for her to find it, right? So give yourself some opportunities to plan ahead how you're going to add that variety into your speech. Does that make some sense to you? The other thing that people really have problems with, remember we talked about ethos, pathos, and logos? One of the ways of building emotion is by using speed and slowing down, right? So we can speed up some words and we can slow some words down. Pastors know this. You can get louder or you can get softer. And both of them work for emphasis, right? You don't need to yell everything to get people to listen to you, right? In the classroom, if my class is being rowdy, I start whispering, and it brings them down, right? If they're loud and I try and out loud them, there's 30 of them. I'm a loud person. I can't out loud 30 loud people. So I out-soft them. So use emphasis, slow down, speed up. Use some passion. Use some vivid language. Instead of saying, I liked Darvis getting up and talking about 007. We all knew what that meant, right? He was the Queen's spy, only for Jesus, which is better than the Queen, because he doesn't have to wear those hats. Oh, and you laughed so much more earlier in the day. So use some emphasis, use some speed, slow things down, use repetition, right? I stopped talking about ethos, pathos, and logos an hour ago until I remind you that I talked about it, right? Repeat things. If something is really important, Vicki repeated, it wasn't prostitution. Vicki repeated that it is a problem in our church. It is a problem. It's a problem in our church, right? Several times. It didn't feel like, oh my gosh, is she going to say it's a problem in our church again? It didn't feel like that. It was, you're right, it is. It happens here. It happens here. It's in my neighborhood, right? And when you repeat things, it adds emphasis, right? It's not a matter of, I have a limited vocabulary so I can only say 8 words. These 8 words are very important, so let me say them again. Make some sense? Do you have questions about delivery? Do you have problems with your delivery?
I have a question. Sometimes when I'm speaking, whether it's like Persecuted Church or just speaking ministry-wise, I have my message all together, my speech all together, and I'm not even nervous. The only time I find myself really getting nervous if I don't know all the facts, I know I don't have all my information. But sometimes my voice starts to shake. I don't know why, because I'm not nervous. But why does that happen?
Because you're nervous.
I don't feel nervous.
Let's be clear. What you're feeling is adrenaline, right? Have you heard of the fight or flight response, right? So in our biology, we have the urge, when a stressful situation is appearing, we're biologically created to stay and fight or run and hide. Speaking is stressful. You may get a kick out of it. You may enjoy it. It might be what you do for sport. It doesn't mean that your physical body doesn't still respond to it, right? So instead of looking at it at nerves, because you don't feel trembly and nervous and anxious, you feel adrenaline, a hormone running through your body that affects your vocal cords. Okay? Does anyone else have problems with a shaky voice or a dry mouth, or kind of you feel like a chicken bone is stuck in your throat and you're getting ready to talk? There are things that you can do for those kinds of delivery issues. Okay? One of the things that I tell speakers to do, if they have a dry mouth or if they feel like their voice is a little scratchy or whatever, is before you get up to speak, suck on something sour, a Jolly Rancher or a lemon drop. Not necessarily, I'm sucking on cough drops because of my throat, but sour, hard candies produce more saliva, which lubricates the throat, which takes care of some of that, oh, something's stuck and now I'm going to die. The other thing that a lot of people don't do, is because they're nervous, they don't eat, so their body is physically tired. So before you give a speech, a speaking event, an hour of speaking takes the same energy as an hour of aerobics. It's hard on the body. You'd think I'd have a better body, but I make up for that in other places. But it is a physically wearing thing. Pastors who speak on Sundays, do you go home and take a nap on Sunday afternoon? If you're smart, you do, right? I just sleep through my freshman speeches and I get all caught up. I'm kidding. But take care of your body. So if you're going to get up and speak, you should eat. You should be hydrated. You should drink water. Some of you are going to hate me for this. You should stay away from caffeine. Yeah, like coffee. You should, if you have any kind of issues with I call it gullah gullah. I don't know what the real thing, but like, I got to clear my throat all the time. You should stay away from milk products when you're getting ready to speak. I mean, not forever, but the morning of. If any of you have sung, you've been told this. Do you know that you're using the same body for singing as you do for speaking? The same parts of your body. So if you've sung in choirs or you're a soloist and you know these things to be true for singing, I should have some credibility that these things would also be true for speaking. If you struggle because after you speak your throat is sore, it's because you're speaking from your vocal cords and not from your diaphragm. When you speak, your stomach should be tight. You should feel it right here. And I wish I could explain how you do that. But I didn't study pathology. So take voice lessons if that is a problem for you. If you are going to be doing extensive speaking and the physicality of it is difficult for you, sore throat, nodules, whatever, consider getting a voice teacher because the skills are the same. Stacy. So that is the I have to get off the stage now.
Yeah, going towards the stage and it just races.
Sure. There are lots of things that we can do for anxiety. The best thing that you can do when your heart is racing, your palms are sweating, some people, my cousin has a terrible flush. She turns red at about this part of her chest and it goes clear up to her bright red. She wears a turtleneck and that solves her problem. But the best thing you can do is breathe slowly. Yeah. Right? So those of you who have ever taken a group exercise class and the instructor said, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and you mocked them, you don't have to tell them you're taking their advice. Just take their advice. Breathe. And breathe slowly. And I'm going to get to some tips for anxiety that will help you. And what's your name? Okay.
I'm one of the speakers who does the whenever I talk. How do you get through that so that that's not, because I think it's a habit. Whenever I watch myself on a video,
it is a habit.
I didn't even realize that I was doing it until I watched it. I'm thinking, I think I said the word like 600 times. How do you break that habit?
It can be painful. Do any of you have bad habits? It's hard to break them. There are a couple things you can do. Do you have a trusted friend who is willing to put up with you? She's sick. They are laughing because they saw her shake her head no. You are actually on the right road to solving that problem because you are aware of the problem. The real difficulty that you have is it's really hard when someone doesn't know they do it, because then they don't begin to fix it. If you know that this is a problem, so you know that you say all the time, or you pause in strange places, or fill in the blank, you do something weird. The best thing to do is get someone who will help you. What I do with my forensic students who have a particularly bad habit is I have a bell from, like at a hotel. Ding, 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 ding. And when I work with them one-on-one, they give their speech, and every time they do whatever it is I don't like. I had a beautiful girl, her name was Emily Vanderbush, and she talked like this, like she was scooping the words right out of her body. And it made me crazy. I said, stop it. I am. I've been working on it, Karen, seriously. Yay, you're doing it more. So she comes in my office and I hand her 2 notebooks and I said, okay, now give me your speech. Because if you can do this while holding 2 big notebooks, well done. So once we know that there's a problem with the delivery, what is your name?
Mine? Camellia.
Precious Camellia gets to point out your deficiencies. Right? I tell the boys, because they're 19, 20, I said, if you want to stop doing something bad, get a buddy, someone that you trust, and tell them I'm trying to break this habit. And every time you hear me say, just punch me. I won't say that to you, Camellia. But if do you preach or just?
No, I speak.
Okay, so when you speak, so before you go to a church and speak, maybe very early before you go to speak, so maybe on Monday or 2 weeks before, you guys sit down and you give her, you get a buzzer, get a beep, snap your fingers, and every time that you do the behavior that you want to stop, you bring it to his attention. Right? It will slow you down. It will take a while. But eventually, you will not want to hear the ding, the buzz, the punch, and once as you are doing the behavior and you hear the immediate response, oh, I'm doing it here, oh, I'm doing it here, you will slow down. And that's true with the body motions, or the scooping your words out, or the dancing, or the right? Although if you can do what I just did 3 times fast, you get a cookie, right? Just get someone to help you. And then practice. And practice and practice. And Camellia, don't let him get away with it. Are you guys married?
Yes.
Okay. I had to ask, I don't know. So you live in the same house?
We even sleep in the same bed.
makes me so very happy. If you give her permission, because I know how wives can be, because I've met a wife or two, and I am one, for a lot of years. If you're doing it when you're speaking professionally, you're probably doing it when you speak privately. You can give her permission to point it out then too. It might cause some marital dysfunction. Because then she might think she has permission to correct you in other places. And we don't want to extend her authority. I think the men were afraid to laugh at that. The women are. Jason's not. Are you married?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a very healthy relationship. He laughed out loud right next to you. Yes.
One of the worst ones is you know.
You know.
I cannot say you know. No, we don't know. Tell us. And you hear a lot of pastors, my dad, you know, well, people that you're speaking say you know.
Ask Brianna. Every time someone says that, I lean over and I go, I do not.
I don't know. No, you know. Professional so-called speakers.
Yes. Here is the thing. 2,500 years ago, when people first started studying the art of persuasion, the art of public speaking, it started in Greece, just so you know. I'll give you a little history lesson. So I didn't ask, do you know? I said, so that you are aware of the information that is coming out of my mouth. And I can't remember his name. But a guy who studied this stuff actually created, there were over 100 poses, affectations that speakers memorized, so that when they wanted the audience to know that they were angry, they did this. And sad was this. I don't know, I didn't see the poster, right? But there were over 100 specific physical behaviors that speakers memorized and did. And it was a very stiff delivery, as you can imagine, right? Can you imagine not only having to remember what you were saying, but that you were supposed to put your finger like this when you said it? Right? Today we would find that silly. That kind of stiff speaking, if you go back even 40 or 50 years where you can get some televised speakers, right? I think if you want to hear who I think is the best speaker, maybe I am too young for it to have been in my lifetime, but in the last 50 years, Google Martin Luther King speaking. When you look at the difference between this passionate, charismatic, godly, civic-minded man and how serious he was behind the pulpit, and you compare him to anybody today, the differences in posture and language and vocal control are amazing. Because baby boomers don't want to grow up.
No kidding.
We don't want to grow up. We want to be young forever, which is why I lie about my age. And to not be a grown-up means that we must relate to everyone, and we must talk to everyone as though they are our best friends. Right? So with the inclusiveness has come a casualness. Right? Which can be perceived as laziness, right? You don't want to go back to the 100 and some odd poses, unless like you want to end up on late night television being mocked. But you don't have to be the let it all hang out, y'all, you know, whatever, dudes. I hate it when I walk in and our school has chapel 3 times a week, and I know that I'm not the target audience. And I go into chapel and they say, hey, you guys. And I look around because we have a 3-to-1 female population. There are women in here. I'm not a guy. Do I do the same thing? Yes, I do. I'm a hypocrite. Hi, I'm Karen. I'm a liar, a hypocrite, redeemed by the blood of Jesus. All I can say. Any other questions about delivery?
I will frequently have hesitation, like as I'm trying to process what I want to communicate next. So
yes.
I'm just trying to figure out if what I will need to be improving upon is just like having the clear, coherent thought and the stream of the message, like before like giving the presentation, or like what are some things, like if it's in the moment and there are just like points where like I freeze up before like getting to the next thing I want to say.
Yeah. Great thing.
Sing it.
Any of you watch Friends? I can give you the advice that Joey was given when he started acting on Days of Our Lives, the soap opera. And he was told to take a pause as though someone had farted. I could give you that advice. It would be bad advice. But I could give you that advice. There is absolutely nothing wrong with collecting your thoughts and moving on. Right? So I wouldn't be afraid of that. If you want to work on it, it's an issue of being practiced and prepared ahead of time. Right? So if I know what I'm going to talk about and I've practiced it, do you guys know that your tongue is a muscle? In fact, I think it might be the largest muscle in your body because it goes way down there. I'm not a biologist. I could be making that up because I do lie. But does anyone here go to the gym, work out, lift weights? Of course it's you. Right? But you know what weights are. You've seen them. Like the Olympics were on. So you are familiar with weightlifting, right? Yes. Your muscles, these ones, and your mouth, your tongue, your jaw, facial muscles, have what's called muscle memory. Right? So if you lift weights and you can curl 25 pounds and you can do 3 sets of 10 reps. See, I'm so good with sports analogies, right? You can do this. And then you get a disease in your arm and you can't work out for 2 weeks. When you go back, you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to start from scratch. I won't ever be able to get back up to 25 pounds and do 3 sets of 10 reps. So I just had to think about what my example was. But your muscles remember. So shortly after you start lifting weights again, that muscle corrects itself and begins to do what it's supposed to do, lift the weight. Same thing when you practice. Some of you don't have to raise your hands. Some of you think practicing is reading what you're going to say in your mind silently and dwelling on it, thinking upon it. And there is nothing wrong with thinking about what you're going to say. But you will not develop muscle memory with your tongue and your jaw and your teeth and how the things come out of your mouth if you don't say it out loud. You got to practice out loud. You've got to say those words. You've got to train your body to know that it knows what's coming next. Right? Did that help? Yeah. And then don't be afraid of taking a pause. No one's perfect. Everyone has to think. Hopefully people are thinking. That would be my great desire, is that people are thinking. Other questions about delivery?
It's great that you said that just then, because that ties in perfectly, as you know, to the last discussion about and you know, and that's the reason we say and you know is because we're hesitating because we don't know what to say next.
Oftentimes.
So what you said is great. It's okay to be silent. Say what you're going to say. Mentally put a period in the sentence.
Move on.
And say some more and let that let that silence be there.
And it goes with delivery. Sometimes a nice little pause, people need to catch up to what you're saying. They need to get at the same place you're getting.
And
Vicki?
the way you approach it is quite interesting as well, because when you get lost, now let me go back to my outline, I'm lost, and you joke about it. You know, now I've gotten into this, or God has led me on this tangent, now let me get back to this.
Oh, none of them were tangents. They were all Holy Spirit led.
But that's
Sorry, Vicki.
your outline is good. You know, pausing to look back into your outline to find out where you are is also an opportunity to.
Absolutely. And this is why I don't do any speaking event without some kind of notes. I always know what I'm going to say. I'm always prepared. I've been teaching. It takes me 15 weeks to teach you what I've kind of tried to cover today, but I've been doing this for 10 years, 3 classes a semester, 2 semesters. I mean, I can do this in my sleep. I hope I don't. Maybe that's why I'm always so tired. But it would not be good form for me to show up in class without notes, given my particular personality and tendency to be Holy Spirit led, and not be able to go, oh, this is where I belong. And a pause is, there is a, do you all expect perfection from yourselves? Yes, honest. How many of you are going to be honest? Tell the truth, shame the devil. How many of you expect perfection of yourselves? How many of you expect perfection from every person you meet? Just me. Okay, 2 of us. Can I encourage you to give yourselves the same break you would give anyone else when it comes to something that maybe you're not perfect at? Unless you are an accountant, and then please stay perfect. Right? This is not rocket science. There is a science to public speaking. There is a science to connecting with humans. There is some science to it. But it doesn't have to be formulaic. And I think it is better when you relax a little bit and give yourself a break. And recognize that your audience, unless it's right before lunch, is on your side. Almost always. Unless you're a Republican at a Democratic National Convention. or a member of the NRA at a Brady Bill convention. Who else can I offend?
I'd like to make a comment about that. You know, in music, it's easy for musicians to get hard on themselves for not performing precisely the way they intend to perform. And a long time ago, somebody taught me this. They said, don't strive for perfection, strive for excellence. The difference. Perfection is an unattainable goal that we put out there for ourselves, that we measure ourselves by, knowing that we will always fall short of it. Excellence is a goal that says, I'm going to give it my best. And as long as I accomplish what I intended to do, it doesn't matter if it wasn't perfect. It was still excellent.
I think that's quite brilliant. I think that's quite brilliant. I would add to that, in addition to public speaking, but in any area of your life, be careful of what the comparison stick is. Right? Our kids are in terrible situations because they compare their bodies and their iPods and their noses and everything to some airbrushed fake perception of beauty, right? The only thing that as Christians we have to do is say, you know what, God? Have I given you my best? You know what my best is. And someday our hope is that He will greet us and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And He won't care about pauses. And he won't care if you wax on or wax off. He won't even care if you begin with the potty dance and an okay. What you are doing is bigger than anything that I've tried to share with you today. Hopefully what I've shared with you today will help you be the best that you, fill in the blank, can possibly be. My biggest goal is that you would know that everyone, anyone, can get up and give a public presentation.
Amen.
Anyone. Anyone. Even if you don't like it. Sometimes you eat spinach. Even if you don't want to. Sometimes the Olympics are on till midnight and you have to work the next morning, so you have to go to bed.
No.
I tell you, he has been so hostile this whole time. Oh, and he's retired. Sometimes the answer is no when you want it to be yes, right? But you can get up and you can do your best. And quite frankly, if anyone's asking you to do more than what your best is, you should run anyways. They're mean. Mean. I was supposed to end at 4:30, I think. Tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit about speech anxiety. If you are a shy person who wanted to ask something but didn't because you're shy, I've actually been invited to have dinner with you tonight. So you can come and ask me the question privately. I'm happy to talk to you. Or you can write it down and give it to someone who will get it to me, and I'll spend a few minutes in the morning answering questions. So if as you're thinking about what we've talked about today, a question comes to mind and you don't want to end up poor Paul where I just pick on you all day. If he'd stop rolling his eyes at me, I would stop picking on him. But if you have a question, I'm happy to, that's why I'm here. So tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about dealing with speech anxiety, stage fright, and you are going to get an opportunity to give your speeches. And Brianne and I are going to, we've got a rubric, an evaluation that we're going to hear your speech and give you, I'm going to take them and type them because I write like an axe murderer. I've never met an axe murderer, so that might not be true, but what I think an axe murderer writes like. So I'm going to go type them up and bring them back so that you can have an evaluation of, oh, I do this. Oh, I thought I did this, but I don't. Yay for me. All right, so that's my schedule for tomorrow. That means I don't get to sleep in. But it's worth it for you folks. Anyways, I'm done.
Thank you.